hotel. We're probably not going to get to one till now. Doing that probably till 11 o'clock instead of 10. And so she got very, very, very upset, and something that simple ended up being in a pretty, a yelling argument. And to stop the argument, I said, what the heck, I'll do it, just to stop the argument. So we get in my car, we go to this little road about 20 minutes later, and take a right and start going down it. And I remember that particular night was very strange. It was in the end of September, as I recall, although I can refine that date a little bit. And it was a very balmy night for that time of year. It almost felt like it was like a tiny bit of fog, balmy, and almost like something you'd see in a science fiction story. It's just very unusual. And there were animals all over the road. So when I was driving, I had to go very slow to dodge whatever they were. You could just see their eyes, So it was a little bit creepy. And we drove for quite a while, and not a single car passed us in either direction as we drove east. We were driving a good solid, it was now about 10 o'clock. We were probably doing about maybe 35 miles an hour, and we had gone, or 30 miles an hour, we had gone about 60 miles. It was about 10 o'clock, and not a single car passed us, which made me very suspicious. This is a little bit unusual. And the gas gauge was going down a little bit, but I was getting concerned about this. There were no gas stations. And we had entered Thunder Base National Grasslands. I saw a sign that said this, and I said, it's even worse. There's going to be nothing there. And then I noticed that I saw a sign that said, Wright, Wyoming, 14 miles. And the sigh of relief came over me that there was going to be a place to go to. Now, Wright is basically a truck stop, but nevertheless, I felt this relief. So at this point, the road went down into a valley in Thunder Base National Grasslands, and it goes down into a valley. So I'm driving. I'm fully awake. I'm not the slightest bit tired, really. And it was a moonless night. Although it was a clear night, it was a moonless night. And so we're going down into this valley. Maybe the incline was maybe 20%, so it was a fairly steep incline. And it was a big valley, so you could look in front of you and see miles off into the distance and down a little bit low. And I noticed there was a red light down there, and it was a very bright red light, and but it was way off in the distance. And I said to my friend, "Oh, there's a really bright light." I said, "It's probably a construction site or something," because when you're in a situation like that, your mind wants to make things up to make you feel better. So I said, that's what that has to be. It's a construction site, and it didn't occur to me till many months later that why would there be a construction site with a bright ruby red light at between about 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night at Thunder Base National Grassland. But nevertheless, it made me feel good. So we drove, and as we drove further, I noticed that the road started to slope down towards the bottom of this little valley, and I kept looking at this light. I sort of blew it off at first, and then my friend said, "Oh, there's the light again." And I said, "I know, I see it." And at this point, the road had leveled off, and it was a single little road. And this was like something out of a movie. It was like, here's a single road, and as flat as you can be, the sagebrush blowing around. Not blowing around, but the sagebrush lying around with little animals, and it's very muggy and a little tiny bit of fog, not too much. And there is, at the end of the road, now straight ahead, a very, very bright red light, maybe at this point a mile ahead of us. And I noticed, to my surprise, that the red light was not on the side of the road, but it was exactly in the center of the road. And it was a lot brighter than what it was when we saw it off in the distance. So at this point, some red flags came up with me. So as I mentioned, I noticed that this light was now on the center of the road as opposed to off the side of it. So a red flag went off with me. If you could go back to the old science fiction show, I forget which it was, where someone was yelled, "Danger, danger." Every fiber of my mind was saying, "Danger, this is not a good thing." And my friend was not saying a word. She was sort of transfixed on this light at this point. And being in the center of the road, I realized that I could not go around it, that I had to go up to it. So whatever this was, it was definitely, I had the distinct feeling, in fact it was pretty clear, that this was waiting for us. So this was not a random event. This was definitely there by design. And the fact that no car passed us in either direction was sort of backed that up. So I'm saying to myself, what is this? So what I did to rationalize it at that moment is I said, oh, I know what this is. To my friend, I said, it's got to be the side of a tractor-trailer truck which jackknifed over the road, and what we're looking at is a neon sign on the side of it. That made me feel a lot better because I figured, now here's a good explanation of what this is. And although my mind on the surface was happy, the one deep down was saying, that's not what this is at all. So I had no clue what this was. So I kept driving forward, and then it got to be maybe about a quarter of a mile away, and I saw that the light was gigantic. It was not a little light at all. It was actually many feet high. And part of me said this must be an awfully large truck, the jackknife. But then I noticed that as I got maybe 500 feet away, maybe then about 300 feet away, about the distance of a football field, you could see that it was approximately 40 to 50 feet high. It was a square of light. It was actually the boundary of a square, and it was red, very bright red light at the boundary of a square, and the square was wide enough so that it went well off the sides of the road, which maybe made it probably approximately 50 feet wide, and it went up about 50 feet high, and it was just the boundary of it was like a neon sign in red, but it was much brighter than neon light, much brighter, and the square was perfectly square, and so naturally I put my brakes on when I got maybe 100 feet away from it, because I've never in my life, even on looking at science fiction movies or reading books, saw anything remotely like this, or heard about anything remotely like this, a giant square sitting on the road in front of me. And then I noticed to my horror, I guess at the time, that it was actually not on the road, it was sitting off the road by about 20, 30 feet.
Above the road, you mean?
Above the road, yes, it was sitting above the road. And then I noticed that, which made it even more frightening, was that it was actually embedded on the back of an object much bigger. So the object that was much bigger was not 40 or 50 feet wide. It was more like probably 60 or 70 feet wide, and it went up about 60 or 70 feet. And this was smack in the middle of it, bounced off the side, sitting on the middle of the road. And therefore, because of the size of it, I could not go around it. It was impossible to go around this thing.
Word.
Completely blocked the road. And when I saw that, I said to myself, this has intended to stop me. My friend was not that scared because it wasn't making any threatening moves. It just blocked the road. Now, it's one thing to see this in a movie. It's another thing to be in this situation in the middle of nowhere. It is quite frightening. So I put the brakes on, and my friend told me to walk up to it, and I said to her, are you out of your mind? You should walk up to it. I'm not going to do that. There it was. I put my engine off, turned my lights off, and there's my car facing this thing, probably maybe 100 feet away, and this was something which was very strange, you can imagine. I sat there for probably 10, 15 minutes staring at it with her, and suddenly it floated off to the ground. It lifted up. The entire black object with the red square in the middle lifted up, and it hovered over the road, maybe about 100 feet in the air, not even that high, maybe about, I don't know, I can't get the exact, maybe 60, 70, 80 feet in the air, and just hovered there. And it didn't make a sound. Myself, knowing quite a bit about technology, I knew that this was nothing that I'd ever heard of before. Otherwise,
you would be in a position to know for certain. Actually.
Yes, for certain. And I've been exposed to many. I've been exposed to some of the best technology the United States has, and there's certainly nothing remotely like this. And so it sat there, and because it didn't make a noise. And because we were there for a good 20 minutes looking at this thing, the fear level went down. And as it floated over the road, it did something which was truly spectacular. The part that we were looking at, which was this 70 by 70 black object with this red square in the middle that was about 40 by 40, suddenly that was the back of it, as it turns out. So the thing starts to turn around, and that part turns out of view away from us. And then suddenly over the road is an object about 200 feet long, which is jet black with a slight blue glow in the middle. And it just stood there, it just hovered there over the road about 200 feet long and stood there. And